to the Black Robe podcast. I am back with my lovely co-host, Miss Carrol Mitchell. How are you doing, Carrol?
Good to see you. We have not been together on the podcast in weeks.
I know, young people, we've been taking it over, okay?
And I like the energy of the young people. You've interviewed Dale Baker Jr., Anzhane Jimenez, and you're going to have Keisha Cooper coming up in a week or so. I love that. I think that's good for us to be highlighting what you are all doing and working on, because that's part of our mission, is to spotlight and develop this next generation of social justice champions.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I love having these peer conversations, where I can pick other people's brains that are around the same age as mine. It's fun to see how we align, and then it's fun to also learn from my peers too. So I appreciate that. But I love Auntie Carrol and your wisdom, especially on the topic that we have in store for today. It's a heavy topic, guys. This is the Black Robe podcast, where we talk about the tough topics. We talk about race, right? We talk about white supremacy. Okay, we talk about anti-Black racism, from everything from a Black perspective. So, Carrol, I know you've been seeing what's going on in the news lately.
Yes. Now, before we get to talking about our local, I don't know what to call them,
our sheriff or our
actors,
whistleblower,
our local actors, characters, I guess. They become characters in a very sad reality sitcom, as far as I'm concerned. It's a very sad reality show. And unfortunately, their behaviors is really affecting the reputation of the city of Tacoma and Pierce County in a very negative way, I think. So much so that people are, starting to wonder about whether or not we need the Department of Justice to come in. And so let me just start there.
Oh, yeah. With the letter.
I was shocked when I saw the News Tribune's editorial that referred to Washington Black Lives Matters, where yours truly was quoted. Because, I'm not ashamed to say that I'm part of the Washington Black Lives Matter steering committee. And
unapologetically.
And hey, which probably means, our Facebook page, our Twitter page, all of our social media is under surveillance by Pierce County, because we found out that that's the kind of foolishness they're engaged in too. Right? We made the list. Anzhane, Washington Black Lives Matters made the list.
Well,
People's Assembly, Tacoma Action Collective, and Nate Boland, we were on the list.
Well, that means we're doing something right.
It means you're doing something right. It means you're doing something right. Because my mom has a saying, when you dig in mess, it stinks every time.
That's so true.
And there's a smell coming up in Tacoma and Pierce County.
It is really sad what's happening, because this isn't just sad on a state level. This is sad on a national level. I mean, we have the New York Post writing articles about Ed Troyer and his foolishness. Okay, the fact that our Attorney General Bob Ferguson is the one that's filing the charges. He got felony charges. How does our sheriff have felony charges against him? Come on now.
And the sad part, frankly, listen, if you dig around in Tacoma, if you've been around Tacoma for any length of time, the Pierce County Sheriff's Department and our present sheriff in particular has had a long and colorful history of behaviors that would curl the hair on the back of your neck, if you got any on the back of your neck. So this is not new conduct. Frankly,
no.
There's a whole history of behavior that I think when the Department of Justice, if and when they start to dig into what's happening in Pierce County. People are going to be some of us will be surprised, some of us will not be. But Black folks have been complaining about the kinds of data we saw come out of the county's own analysis. The fact that they are much more likely to be victims of use of force, especially young Black men, the 16 young kids, basically, young children are much more likely to be victims of use of force in Pierce County than their white counterparts doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, when there's a little family dispute that happens, which is how many young people end up at Raymond Hall, the detention center, white kids get a citation and a call to the family therapist, and Black kids get arrested and detained and don't get to go home anytime soon. It's the reason why there's still this disparity in the numbers, even though the juvenile justice system in Pierce County has received national awards for their transformation of that system. It used to be 200 and some young people over there. Now it's like 22 to 25 on an average day. But of that 25, it's a lot of young African-American men.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't argue that. I know it's so sad. It's just so sad because we have the data. We know, we see the problems. We know the issue is right in front of our face. But then we still have the bureaucracy. We still got the red line, the tape, right? The good boys clubs, right? I mean, it makes one wonder, will things ever get better? Or how do we get things better, And the only answer I can think of is to vote, Carrol.
You got to vote. And the turnout in October was just sad. I think something like, I don't know, 17%.
Oh no,
it's like, really?
Yeah.
Come on, people. And so this is how you end up with the kind of people you see in leadership. And the sad part is you cannot get rid of them easily. You're stuck. It's so easy to vote and so hard to get rid of the consequence of not voting.
Right, that's that red tape, right? We can't just kick them out as soon as we kick them in. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
No, and so here's, there are those charges that you mentioned. And so one of the questions that, has been posed is, okay, can we now have our sheriff decertified by the Criminal Justice Training Center?
A sheriff should not have pending charges.
Well, now you just want to be nitpicky.
Is that too much to ask? I mean, they run background checks to just work at Foot Locker. We got a sheriff with pending charges. Come on now.
And look, guess what? Guess what the Criminal Justice Training Center has to say? You don't need to be certified as a police officer to be the sheriff.
What?
So even if he were decertified, he could still be the sheriff. What do you think of that? You can't be a cop, but you can be a sheriff. In this state, the rules allow that.
Now, what is the difference? Is it because cops are by city, the sheriff is by county?
No.
Why is the qualification less?
I think because
a sheriff,
it's an elected official. It's an elected official. So
you just got to be 18.
That means your grandmama could run for sheriff.
Everybody can run for sheriff.
And never go to the academy. Doesn't even need to graduate.
Have training.
Graduated. I mean, I think maybe there's some rule that eventually you might have to meet some expectation. But the candidates who ran for sheriff against our present sheriff, I think 2 or 3 of them didn't have any certification as police officers either. They hadn't been through the academy, so
Oh man.
not required. So if you can't deal with a person through decertification, how about the Brady List? We'll put you on the Brady List, which basically we call that the liars list.
The blacklist.
Well,
it's not. For lack of better.
It's a lot of white people on that list. So
it's a lot. That's the irony in it.
I don't want to call it the blacklist, but it's the list of people whose credibility is in question for one reason or another. And that credibility can be used, you know, to defend against anything they say if they testify. But how often does a sheriff actually get on a stand and testify? Maybe once in a year or once in a career?
Yeah.
Rarely.
So
what is the big deal about being on the Brady List?
No, we found ourselves in this position where we don't have another check or balance. Like, it seems like we ran out of all of our bullets. We're sitting here trying to defend ourselves. We got a holster. We got maybe a pistol, but nothing inside because
it's shooting blanks.
We're shooting blanks. I mean, and what's really sad is like what gives us the gun and the holster is the Pierce County Equity Review Board. It's all of these things that sound like we're moving forward. The data, the disparity study, the whatever, the bills that are passed, when we're talking about police brutality and police accountability, we were just talking about Jesse Johnson's bill. I mean, so much makes you think we're moving in the right direction just for you to turn around and say, wait, I don't have any, I still don't have any leverage. These people, they're still able to get away with what they want.
And the reason why we're talking about it is because eventually people stop talking about it, stop thinking about it, and we're not going to stop talking about it.
No.
Even though they're hacking into our Instagram, they're taking our videos down off of our YouTube page. We are not going to shut up about it because it's wrong.
It's straight up wrong. And, I mean, look, we did have some wins, right? We saw that Ahmaud Arbery's killers, all three of them were convicted. That was in Georgia.
Praise the Lord, saints.
That was in the South, the dirty, like Atlanta.
Hey, I mean, Brunswick, Georgia.
Brunswick, right. They're close to Safeway, probably. Say, I don't know Brunswick that bad. But they getting it right. I mean, we still haven't convicted Manny Ellis.
Hey, they got it right because the killer's own video evidence and own 911 calls did him in. Now, this is how bold they were. They were videotaping their own foolishness. And that videotape at the end, as the jury, once the case went to the jury asked to see that videotape. And then they wanted to see it in high definition. It's like, show it to us in HD.
I want to see it in 3D.
And then they wanted to see it 3 times in HD, girl. And then they wanted to see it in HD slow down.
Oh my goodness.
So their own, people are so bold now that they think, hey, I'm just going to record this because I'm doing a citizen's arrest. That was their whole defense. That they had a reasonable belief that a crime was being committed, and they have a right to interfere or apprehend somebody involved in committing a crime, except for one thing. The brother was just jogging through the neighborhood.
He was just jogging. He can't get some exercise, a little fitness, health and wellness.
And they brought shotguns to the party.
That is really frightening. But look, Troyer was on tape. We got his whole audio. We got the call, right?
Yeah, but conveniently, no body cam.
No body cam. No
conveniently.
police statement, right? There's no statement, really no evidence other than that call.
Well, there are some statements, you know, in the 911 call or calls that were made. There's statements in the, you know, the transcripts of what the officers who showed up and spoke to him said he said, right? So, but hey, we got a judge coming out of Kitsap County for that case because for some reason he doesn't, you know, I guess maybe he doesn't feel like he can get a fair trial in Pierce County. And maybe there is an inherent conflict of interest there because all the judges know him. So we have a judge coming out of Kitsap County to hear the case. But of course, he's pled not guilty.
Of course. I don't know if Kitsap County is if that's a win or not. I guess we will see. You know, we gotta stay hopeful. You know, that's why we keep doing what we're doing. We keep beating our drum, sending our smoke signal of the foolishness that's happening out here so everyone can see that this is still relevant. This is current. This is happening right now.
And listen now, listen. I have heard for the last 6 weeks the same report about the Manny Ellis internal investigation. That is so frustrating and irritating to me. I'm just sick of it. I don't even believe anything being said about it right now. Yeah. It has drug on so long with so many delays and so many, I need this and I need that file and I'm reviewing this and then my boss has to review it and then his boss and his boss. Maybe we'll have a new police chief by the time they figure out what to do with that case. Because, you know, our interim chief, Mike Akey, didn't make the cut.
Oh, he didn't. He was here for how long? 2 weeks?
No, I mean, he's been there. It's been almost a year. I don't know how long. Yeah, he's been in there, you know, and I think some people thought he might have been promoted to chief after I think, you know, whenever you're appointed as an interim, you're basically auditioning. Right. You know, there are some public organizations that prevent you from being able to interview when you've been the interim, but not in Tacoma.
Not in Tacoma.
Yeah, you can be an interim and then you get slotted right on into the position, even when there might be other external folks who applied and thought they had a shot. But there were 2 African-American candidates for police chief, one from California, another one from Texas. And a woman named Kathy McAlpine, who was formerly with Tacoma PD and went off somewhere to be whatever she was, chief wherever. And then one, you know, person who identifies as white. So 4 candidates. They had the big community forums a couple of weeks ago. Did you go?
No. I know. Don't judge.
I won't judge you. But I guess word on the street is a question came up in the community about the extent to which the recruiters engaged the Black community or any other impacted community in the selection of the 4 candidates. And guess what the answer was?
What?
We didn't.
We did.
They didn't.
They didn't care. They didn't care.
But to their credit, but they did come up with, you know, 2 viable African-American male candidates and 1 woman who has significant experience, but some people may see her as an insider because she used to work for them. And then 1 other, you know, qualified white male candidate. And so far, we don't know who. That was November 16, 17, when they had all the big forums. And we still haven't heard anything about an offer. So we shall see who.
I wonder what's taking so long. It's the 30th now, you know. 2 weeks
Well,
to deliberate.
they might be negotiating money.
Mm-hmm.
But this police chief, just so you know, has some ties to the former city manager of Tacoma, because he went to Dallas when he left Tacoma. And this, one of the candidates is coming from Dallas.
Mm.
So, we don't know whether or not there's any sense that he would be, like have an edge of some sort, because he might have a better sense of what he's getting himself into. But he's working for Tacoma's former city manager, or working with him, TC Broadnax.
Well, let's hope that whoever the new chief of police is, brings that equity lens. We really need it. Come on. I mean, this last year it's been tough. It's been bad, with gun violence, with vehicular violence, with police brutality, with, I mean, and to hear the numbers, to hear the data that young Black children they experience violence five times the rate, or 5 times the intensity.
I saw somewhere it's like 13 times or something. Where did I see it? I don't know. Black people, local deputies use force against Black people at more than 5 times the rate they do against white people.
Mm-hmm.
And the largest disproportionality in the study shows Black children, youth under the age of 18. So kids experience force 7 to 13 times more than their white peers when they come in contact with police. And we wonder why Black communities do not feel safe when you add more police. Hello, City of Tacoma. This is the reason. When you say more police, more police, more police.
It really sounds.
Yeah. Some communities say, oh, hell no, because they're already.
It really, exactly.
Suffering.
The police need to understand that in some communities, they are looked at as a gang, because of this terror that they bring with them, this intimidation, this fear, this violence that they bring, and it's targeting. We see it, Of course, we're not going to call you when we're in danger, because you ain't going to help us. You're going to put your knees on our neck.
And listen,
we don't have time for that.
The bad part is our present executive is going into his 6th year. He knew this data 5 years ago. This is not new. They've known about this for years. Yours truly, we started a data-driven justice work group 3 years ago to dive into these kinds of things. We begged the sheriff at that time to launch a vision for justice, a new vision. He wasn't ready to vision a different way of operating. That's why it's a systemic problem. And part of me says the present situation we find ourselves in is an outcome of a broken system. So it almost doesn't matter who you have as sheriff or police chief, because the whole system is rotten to the core, and you got to find a way to inject some kind of penicillin into that sick system.
It's so true. And it was built to be rotten. It was designed to be to keep those in power, right? That is not a facade. I mean, what we see is literally the outcome of morally unethical, ingenious products. I mean, they really, white supremacy, racism, just any sort of supremacy or hierarchy, where classism, right, where you have to just keep those in power, and those that are disadvantaged or of color or aren't wealthy, the othering group, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so sad, but you're right. We have to stay optimistic. We have to continue to fight. We knock down a little bit of siding every time. We might not get the wall down, but a little bit of that cement siding is chipping off, and eventually we'll make a breakthrough. That's the hope. Hopefully we can follow Georgia's lead. Isn't that really sad? I feel like we just took a step back. Let's follow Georgia's lead.
Georgia was a bright spot because, you know, it proves that a white prosecutor, a white judge, and a mostly white jury can do what's right by a Black man. They can do it. People can see
humanity.
People can see what's right, and if they're really looking for justice, they can certainly find it. If they can set their biases aside, their racist views aside, you know, their hierarchy aside, if they can do that, you can find justice in any group of people. I think I'm going to recommend that everybody read Heather McGhee's The Sum of Us, because she talks about why it is that people believe the big lie of racial hierarchy, and why especially white lower caste people are so invested in it, because that othering is how higher caste, mostly white people, are able to continue to extract resources from them. That's why, hey, that's why you're only being paid $7.25 an hour in Georgia, because higher caste people have persuaded them, you know, they've been persuaded that it's better to be poor and white than to be poor and Black. No, it's better for you to not be poor at all.
Exactly.
No matter what color you are, right? But
I agree with that.
They choose their race over pushing against a system that's actually taking advantage of them and their labor and their energy. And Heather McGhee talks about how racism extracts a cost from all of us. We got to get to the point where we see the real beneficiaries of the present system, and we begin to push against that big lie. Exactly. There is no racial hierarchy.
Exactly. Well, I think that's a beautiful way to end today's segment, with that recommendation, that title. You know, IBJ, we're all about developing our brains, developing our leadership skills, you know, our communication skills. And so dropping dimes like book titles is nothing that's not uncommon around these parts. So if you guys like what you heard today, please continue to follow us on all of our social media platforms, and continue to check out our Black Robe podcast. We have over 50 episodes now. So if this is your first time tuning in, go check out a few of the old ones. Give us a like and a thumbs up. And
yeah, they should check out the ones before we had good Wi-Fi and good lighting.
See the before and afters, huh?
Oh, just proof that you too can start with nothing and make something out of it.
We sure have come a long way. Well, thank you so much, Carrol, for just, you know, indulging in this conversation with me. I really appreciate it. It's, you know, it's not always the easy conversation to have. I don't always walk away feeling light afterwards, but, you know, our voice is important. And it's good that we have spaces like this where other people that might be agreeing with what we're saying, right, can find community in our voices. So.
Yeah, and you know, you're not crazy when you start to think. When you think this way, you are not crazy. What's going on around you is crazy, but you could be thinking in a very sane and understandable and reasonable way about it. So thanks, Anzhane.
Thank you so much, Carrol. All right, on that note, we'll see you guys next week. Have a great rest of your night. Bye.